Sydney Sweeney. Sydney Sweeney says, James of Hastown from parents to offspring. She sounds to me, and I'm terrible at accents, but Sydney Sweeney sounds to me like what I think those young people in those Victorian era movies sound like when they're asking, may I have more soup? Anyway, apparently, Sydney Sweeney is just like this beautiful, beautiful woman on the top 10 list for everyone. I see her. I'm not saying she's not beautiful. I'm not judging her beauty in that way. She just seemed like a regular, everyday white woman to me. I don't know why. So maybe like I just can't, my eyes don't pick up. Look, I'm a fruitcake apparently. So like I can pick up the nuances of beauty, but when I think about like a beautiful white woman, Angelina Jolie and Megan Fox come to mind. Look, maybe I just don't understand the hierarchy of beauty and eye color in here. Girl, maybe I don't understand it. So I'm not the expert on beauty generally. Like, let's just, on white women beauty, I'm not the expert. But apparently, Sydney Sweeney is just this like beautiful woman that men, white men in particular, are just fascinated with. And so I wanted to open by saying that Sydney Sweeney might just be a vehicle for a kind of toxic culture that is being represented, and maybe she doesn't understand her place in it, or if she does, she's playing into this archetype that helps her to sell. And so let's get into this video. Grab your coffee, water, tea, whatever you're drinking. Go and get that. This is Surf City. And let's talk about Sydney Sweeney and her genes. Both Jeans and Genes. So let's talk. I think to start, it is important to note that Sydney, has not articulated in any meaningful way her politics or her political leaning. It is not clear to me online that she has overtly said something. However, her silence on certain things and her willingness to engage in certain specific way and court certain specific audience implies something about her politics. And the question of whether or not it should matter is, I think, fundamentally important. This might be another sort of Taylor Swift is a Nazi moment where people projected onto Taylor Swift the idea that she is in alignment with the MAGA group because she did not speak politically about where she stood until she did her documentary Americana and explained her political leaning and that she was not actually conservative. So this might be that, but I highly doubt it, and I will explain why. For now, what we do know is that Sydney Sweeney understands that she has the attention of the MAGA crowd, and she seems to like it and indulges them in the way that she promotes whatever it is that she's promoting. As I say this, I have to also highlight the fact that Sweeney has expressed concerns around her finances and her inability to keep up with certain kinds of payment. Fox Business reported on this and the Business Insider reported on this. And I do think to contextualize what is happening in terms of why she would be taking on what I believe to be zealous promotion where she's selling her bath water, for example, diminishing her brand. I think that could be a product of financial insecurity. And we can go to the Business Insider. I'll put it on the screen as we're talking about it or as I'm reading it to highlight that this could be an issue of financial troubles and the need to compensate through certain kinds of business ventures for her team that is growing and her lifestyle that apparently needs to be maintained through a lot of money. So let's read it. In the Business Insider, Sweeney highlighted, and the quote says, I, Sweeney, I don't have someone supporting me. I don't have anyone I can turn to pay my bills or call for help. She goes on, they don't pay actors like they used to, and with streamers, you no longer get residuals. The established stars still get paid, but I have to give 5% to my lawyer, 10% to my agent, 3% or something like that to my business manager. I have to pay my publicist every month, and that's more than my mortgage. She goes on to explain her expenses, and this is a kind of openness that we don't see in celebrities nowadays, where she is talking openly about her financial troubles and her financial situation rather than troubles. So I think that is important to contextualize. I think that is important to understand as we move forward. She might just be doing this for a check. Now, does that excuse her behavior? I don't think so. But is her behavior bad? And that's something that I think we should talk about. To be clear, Sydney Sweeney thinks, or at least she wants us to think, that she has money issues and that she needs to engage in more than just acting to make money to sustain her lifestyle. And in truth, the price of being an adult for anyone is high. Don't know what her cost of living is, but apparently it is really high. However, I do think Sweeney has to take responsibility for her image or her action if it is bad, and you cannot just use the excuse that I needed the money as an explanation for why you would engage in behaviors that would be inconsistent to what your brand is supposed to be and represent. Though I do think this financial issue, I think the way that we are contemplating her financial problems as we've seen it could explain why she's selling her bathwater. Like, let's be very clear. Selling your bathwater is a reductive, degenerate engagement that you would see from a D-lister, maybe Z-lister, but not an A-list celebrity. So maybe there is some financial issues because I don't see taking a hit to your brand the way that Sweeney would have had to take a hit to her brand to sell her bathwater. I don't think the trade-off would be worth it unless you really desperately needed the money at that moment and the pay was so good that you couldn't turn it down. The latest, and the issue we're here to talk about, is Sweeney talking about genetics. It is her commercial for American Eagle. Her latest controversy now has to do with her American Eagle commercial, where people on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, the mainstream media are accusing her of promoting eugenics and white supremacist ideas. I'm going to discuss this not just as an attempt to engage with her specific behavior, but as a cultural reset that we're in that we do need to engage with on a deeper, more meaningful level. From a business perspective, all of this, from the American Eagle to selling her bathwater, all of these business ventures are reductive and degenerate and reduces her brand. If I hadn't said that up front, I'm repeating it now. The question about why she does it, while important, and the branding issue that comes about here, while again important, is not what this video is here to dissect or engage with. Rather, before I go any further, I think it is important to watch the commercial in question. So let me play this commercial and then we'll come back and talk.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
Okay, so we all saw that ad, right? Like, we all saw that ad. And that is a Trump era ad. I don't know why, in the worst way possible. I don't know why there are people who are doing this kind of review and are afraid to be called woke or a snowflake. Let me be the first. I am not the first. There are many people on TikTok doing this. Let me be or add my voice to the chorus of voices pointing out that this is in fact promoting a white supremacist ideal. And it does have hints of this white purity and the hierarchy of beauty within whiteness, where blonde hair, blue eyes is at the top. All of that is true. All of it is true. If you watch that and you did not get that feeling and you did not think this is promoting a very specific kind of whiteness and the homophone, the double entendre that comes with jeans right now when she said, I have great genes, panning to her blue eyes. If you didn't catch any of that, here's an image. And this is a billboard where the word GENES is crossed out, and beneath it you see JEANS. So whoever, the marketing people that were paid a ton of money to come up with this concept, did not just say, let me get a beautiful girl, let me get someone who can sell jeans. No, they got Sydney Sweeney, the new it girl, not just for A-listers, which is not the truth, there's many others, but the woman that is being pushed in MAGA circle as the perfect woman for a company called American Eagle to sell back to American people an ideal around Americana. We're talking about the Mustang in other videos. We're talking about the very specific appeal to old ads. We're talking about the Calvin Klein ads that should come into mind with Brooke Shields, who was being exploited at the time at 50, at an underage Brooke Shields being exploited at the time. This is what we're talking about. Make America Great Again is important in this context for the again piece. And yes, the cultural context in which this ad is taking up residence right now is important to discuss. Like, this ad does not just exist outside of its context. And so people who are upset with it, I think they do have an argument. But the question, and I will leave this to you all, is the point around racism and eugenics being overstated? You can have at it down in the comment section. The question I am finding myself asking, and again, maybe an overstatement of where the ad was attempting to go. If there is a good gene, right, great genes, are there bad genes? And what are bad genes? In the past, bad genes were eliminated, or rather, there was an attempt at eliminating genes that were not good. This might be where the eugenics group is getting their part of the conversation from and adding it in. Separately, I do know that there are brands that are attempting to dissuade certain groups from being in their clothing. Lululemon, I'm talking about you, but there are ways that brands signal to different groups that this is the group that they want, while other groups aren't the groups that they want in their clothing. I do think this is important. I think you should take note, and if you don't believe that you are part of the group that is being sold to or talked to, then don't engage with that brand. That's my personal philosophy, just generally. So in this way, American Eagle might just be trying to appeal to a majority white audience. And if you're not a part of that, maybe you don't shop at American Eagle. I don't know. And it is important to note that there are other commercials where there's a Mustang involved, and I talked about this earlier. This is an appeal. All of it, the Great American Project, the Americana of it all of this is intentional. It's supposed to evoke some kind of national identity and pride, and again, Americana. What it means to be American comes across somewhat in these commercials, but not American broadly, but a specific type of American. Sweeney, in this way, is also a product as a brand to sell other products to people. But she's not just selling products, as I talked about Americana and a kind of Americana. She's selling an idea. Brands tend to not sell things, they sell idea. What is the idea being sold? I think, from my perspective, it's a new America, a renewed America. The again in Make America Great Again comes across as a reclamation of what Americana is in this video. Again, it might be a bit sociological and academic and too far for sort of general consumption to dissect and break down a commercial and its implication this way, but I do think we have the range, the capacity to do it. So I think we should do it. In this way, the commercial is saying white is back. The question is, did it ever leave? White is back is diabolical when it never left. Woke is dead as a reaction to the woke culture implies that at some point woke was alive and kicking and controlling of the cultural climate, and this is now a sort of reclamation of the culture for a specific group of people. It's interesting on the woke is dead bit. It is interesting to watch pundits who Daily Wire, all these conservative pundits talk about how this commercial is validation that woke is dead. It is an anti-woke campaign. It's a reclamation of culture. They say this, they loudly proclaim this while also saying things like, this is not that serious. There is no hidden message. It's not a dog whistle. It's just simply a beautiful woman putting on jeans and selling it to you. Those two statements, those two ideas, those two camps are diametrically opposed. Either it is a simple commercial with no significant meaning, or it is a political statement, reclamation in some ways of a culture that was once woke being not woke anymore, an anti-woke campaign. You cannot say it is a simple commercial with no meaning and also that it is a political statement of reclamation. Those are seemingly inconsistent. Now you can square that round, and I'm here for it. There is also a separate issue, I believe. The issue that I find is when it comes to dog whistling and propaganda, the right and conservatives tend to have a very keen awareness, right? A specific inclination towards highlighting where there is LGBT propaganda, and that is a PhD level type analysis. Not that it's good, but that it's dense and in some ways thoughtful, in other ways not. But when it comes to race and race relation, it feels like these people didn't even go to kindergarten. And there is an inability to do the kind of analysis they do when there is an LGBT issue at hand. And I find that really fascinating. I do not. I think the approach is lazy. I do not find it fascinating. I think this is intellectual laziness. Intentionally so. Like it's an unwillingness to do deep thinking or analysis. It is important that I note that when we read on the campaign and what it is about, American Eagle attempts to explain that this is a kind of Sweeney genes. It's a collaboration with Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle to bring awareness and put money into hotlines for domestic abuse victims and to promote domestic abuse hotlines for victims to get engagement and help. That is interesting while there is a callback, right, and a ripping off of an old Calvin Klein commercial that is exploiting a young girl, a young Brooke Shields at 15 during the time, allegedly. And I find this fascinating because on one hand, it is promoting, even though we don't see it anywhere in the commercial, it is highlighting, at least on the website, and it is giving money to a good cause to support victims of DV, while also paying homage to the exploitation of a young girl. I find the irony there just palpable, and I wish more people would talk about that kind of irony in the promotion of a quote-unquote good cause. It is clear that controversy in this way was being used as a selling point by American Eagle and Sydney Sweeney. While one group of people argued about eugenics and white supremacy, another group of people argued about woke and snowflakes and go out and actually invest, buy these jeans and stocks for American Eagle. And we saw that for American Eagle, the stock price increased. There was an increase in sale. I think it was from 6% to 15%, 6 to 15% increase, I think it was. And to me, I think that highlights that at least in the short term, the ad did work. The controversy did work. The discussion did work. Will it work long term? Who knows? Do I actually care if it works long term? I kind of do not. What I do care about is the thought process behind the commercial. So we had high paid, smart people in a room, and the idea that they came out with for selling jeans in today's climate is one that hints very obviously at genetic superiority, at whiteness in a very specific way, not just any kind of white. So if you're, let me be clear, if you're white and you're watching this and you're annoyed, it's not, unless you're blonde with blue eyes, it's not you either. But it could be, and here's why it could be. It could be that in elevating a very specific kind of whiteness, you being not that kind of white, but still white, that you fall under Sydney Sweeney's aesthetics and her genetics, but under you might be everyone else. And that might give you some kind of feel good guys, that give you some kind of feel-good engagement where you are defending, because even if you are not that high, you're at least not at the bottom. I would tell you that that's not a good way to think, but you are not going to listen to me. If you believe that this is not important and this is useless and everyone is getting annoyed and getting their, what is it, panties in a bunch? I don't remember the phrase, but I think that's the phrase. If that is your opinion, nothing I'm saying right now is going to change your mind because you're not open to the idea that this is important and this has racial undertones that could be harmful to other groups of people. You are not about to engage in that. So why would I waste my time? I won't. So feel how you feel, do how you do, and I'm going to continue my video. Oh, there is also a separate male gaze discussion that I hope other people do. And it is a comparison that I think will be, this is an aside. This is such a tangent, but I need to say it. I want to watch a video where someone is dissecting Sydney Sweeney's branding, selling bathwater, engaging with the MAGA group and trying to win the affection of these groups of men who do not think women generally should have certain kinds of rights. And her character on Euphoria, Cassie, who was also desperately seeking validation from men and really wanting to engage and court the male gaze in that TV series. If you do that video, please let me know, because I do think it's an interesting dichotomy. And I'm not talking about Sydney Sweeney, the person. I'm talking about Sydney Sweeney, the brand and the marketer and the businesses that we see her engage with publicly. That's the person, that's the entity that I want to be compared to Cassie. If no one does it, maybe I'll do it. We'll see, depending on how people engage with this video. Let me know if I should do that. Anyway, back to this branding. I do question, Sydney Sweeney is a young lady at 27, obviously in my age group, but she's a young lady at 27. Should I expect that she would understand the historical context of whatever she's promoting and also the kind of cultural climate that it operates in? Do I expect her? Yes. To know these things? Again, yes. But is that a fair request for anyone? And I don't know. I think there's a simple answer, which is yes, if you exist here, you should understand the context in which you exist. Shout out to Kamala Harris. But I don't know that that's fear anymore, because no one seems to care about history. Now, the idea obviously is that if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it, makes it quite clear that our responsibility is to be better, hopefully, than the people who came before us by learning from what they did wrong and right and how we can improve on it. But it doesn't seem like that. When we are wanting to go back in time, when we're wanting to strip women's rights away, when we are wanting to promote a very specific kind of supremacy and whiteness in particular, I don't think we're trying to learn from history. I think we're intentionally engaging in repeating something that obviously did not work well. Leisha Miller, a YouTuber on here, did a video on this that I thought was so good. If you want to learn about history and American export of a specific kind of white supremacy that Hitler fell in love with and then used to subjugate groups of people. If you want to learn about that, go to Leisure Miller. She did a great video. But I think it is important that if you watch the ad and you felt the condescension, if you felt the specific kind of promotion of whiteness in a specific way, I hope that you don't get gaslit into believing that that feeling, that knowing, that understanding of what you saw is irrelevant and meaningless. Even if you are unable to articulate that which you feel, trust that feeling, investigate that feeling, and do work with that feeling, and don't just let it go. I don't think it is fair to you to think, oh, I am just being overly critical because something comes to you naturally insofar as understanding what it is that you're consuming. I don't think you should let that go. And I think the Leisure Miller video helps with that a lot. I want to now take this time to not address but bring up a claim around whiteness. And I'm going to ask a couple of questions that I do think you all should answer. Actually, I can boil it down to one because I don't want this video to be that long. So I'll just summarize it in one question. Let's see. Is it okay for white people as a group to celebrate whiteness as a thing? To celebrate whiteness as a very specific physical manifestation of genetics? And does that necessarily mean that other people are being diminished? Historically, this is true. There has never been a time where whiteness is being celebrated and it does not come at the cost of everyone else. Now, if you can find that, let me know. I'm willing to look and redo this part of this video, readdress this part of this video. And I do think it is interesting that the anti-woke group, the MAGA group, or whatever you want to call them, they're so caught up in, more general, they're so caught up in rubbing it in the woke mob's face that there is an unwillingness, I believe, to acknowledge rights being stripped away, an attack on homelessness, an attack on poor people, an attack on minority, and even an attack on the general American ideas around freedom of speech generally, and due process, most importantly. While those get stripped away, MAGA and people generally are trying to rub their win in everyone else's face. And I do think that that kind of ego is so overwhelming that this video and videos like it critiquing anything generally about anti-wokeness will not cut through. The one thing that did cut through is the Epstein files. That is the one thing that did cut through. And I'm trying to figure out what are the other ways to cut through so that people don't sit idly by while their rights get pushed to the sides in a culture that is promoting whiteness. Do white people accept the promotion of whiteness as enough for their rights to be stripped away? I don't know. But more and more, we are seeing the Overton window shift, where more of what was behind the curtains, racism at the dinner table with certain families, are now taking center stage and is okay. And people are okay with this because they feel seen and represented, and they will give up actual rights for this being seen and represented, and that is wild to me. The defense of this ad feels like a defense of a new culture, but with this culture comes the kind of political overbearing restriction that people aren't willing to fight against, and I find that really sad. So what I'm saying, to be clear, is that this ad is a small ripple in an ocean of conservative ideology that is taking hold. And as we watch the shift into whatever new phase of America this is going to be, I worry that we accept too readily this new reality. Mind you, patriotism, as I talk about Americana in the ad, does not belong to conservative. And I think it is really sad when I see people who are left, who are critiquing America, think that a critique of America means that they do not love America. I think you critique things that you want to be better. To make something better and wanting something to be better is itself love. And when Donald Trump critiques America and say we are doing terribly and he's going to come in and make it better, his critique comes from what people call patriotism. Why can't yours be patriotism when you talk about racism and inclusion and representation generally? Wanting a more equal America where equity reigns supreme does not mean you dislike America. It means you know what the future can hold and you're working towards that. But anyway, apparently patriotism is not something the left cares about. So we move, and I will end here. I think that it is not overblown. I think that using sociological language to break down a commercial is useful. I don't think people should go overboard and drag everyone involved, but I do think a critical analysis of that which we're consuming is good, and do not let anyone tell you differently. Do not be gaslit into not believing your own eyes and ears, and I will end here. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye. Oh, and I go live on Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Over the summer, the schedule kind of fluctuates, it changes, all of that. But as a general matter, I go live at 6 p.m. on Fridays, Eastern Standard Time, if you ever want to talk, discuss, or disagree. Bye.
Genes are passed from your parents to your offspring. My genes are blue.